All right, so the next topic is less restrictive alternative community housing.
The question from the board that we followed up with the prosecuting attorney's office on was whether we could amend the definition to be more transparent and clear about what these facilities actually are.
This LRA, is it a broad blanket for other uses, or is it just specific for folks, well, for sex offenders?
If it says, if it says court-ordered treatment on one, I mean, that could be lots of different types of treatment, right? Not just.
And the docket item is focused on the new mandates for LRA community housing for sex offenders. And so this definition reflects what's in state law as it pertains to that. There are different sections that would apply to those other.
Yeah, I just looked up 7109.092 and it's specific to sex offenders.
Okay. Too.
These people are, these are sex offenders. They're trying to slip in.
Just to be.
All right, so the next topic is less restrictive alternative community housing. I know we had a presentation, board had certain questions. I'm assuming this is a follow-up to that last section, so.
Yeah. Ashley Rye, Interim Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, and I am joined here today by Anna Rodriguez, member of our Growth Management Services team, who's been taking the lead on this project and keeping it moving. As Commissioner Mentzer mentioned, we are here today to really just follow up on the two primary questions that came out of the last briefing and then asking the board whether you feel comfortable moving forward with scheduling a public hearing. So, overview of today's briefing. We'll just quickly go through the process to date as a reminder, and then we're going to touch on the proposed new definition given the feedback that you all provided, the information we learned about business licensing and inspections, as well as next steps. So here's been our process to date. This was a rank number 1 on the development code docket. So we got it to the Planning Commission as soon as the docket was approved. So that was in April. Held work sessions with the Planning Commission, followed by a public hearing. And then of course we came to the board in August with an introductory brief, and we're back today. So the question from the board that we followed up with the prosecuting attorney's office on was whether we could amend the definition to be more transparent and clear about what these facilities actually are. And so up there in the red underline is what we were able to develop. Do you have anything additional you want to add?
No, I just touched base with the prosecuting attorney's office on ways we could try and make it more transparent, and so this was done in collaboration with them. And you can see, like, while people on the left and sex offenders on the right, we just changed those words, and then the underlined text, as Ashley said, was in addition to amend that further.
Any questions? Or a thumbs up on including this?
It's the language that the commissioners are good with.
I understand adding that in there, but there's less restrictive alternative community housing models or whatever that are for folks other than sex offenders, correct? Like, it seems like that's, the state is looking for all kinds of, like this, all these different LRAs that would be for juvenile offenders, mental health, folks, and like, it seems to be like this community-based model that they're trying to move all kinds of different folks into.
Yeah,
and if we, like, with the Green Hill discussion, there was some talk about, having community-based, kind of confinement, not confinement for juvenile offenders.
Are you asking, does this LRA, is it a broad blanket for other uses, or is it just specific for folks, well, for sex offenders?
If it says court-ordered treatment on one, I mean, that could be lots of different types of treatment, right? Not just.
And the docket item is focused on the new mandates for LRA community housing for sex offenders. And so this definition reflects what's in state law as it pertains to that. There are different sections that would apply to those other.
Yeah, I just looked up 7109092 and it's specific to sex offenders.
Okay,
So
okay.
I mean, by having that reference in there, it's probably okay.
I just see the state trying to do this in every different field they can with, working with private industry to, move people that are in confinement into community settings.
And as we see that trend continue, this will be a good model for whether it's just a small tweak to the definition and all of a sudden the special use provisions apply, or whether they're distinct enough that we still use this model, but, we call it out as a distinct
Something
special
different.
use.
Yeah.
If we added what what Wayne's bringing up here is, if we added after where we've got residents used to house sex offenders, if we added or others, so it would say resident used to house sex offenders or other court-ordered treatment issues, and that'd cover your mental health and juvenile and all
Why
that.
don't we just leave it as people then? Like,
This one, no,
Well, because we want the public
Be
to know
specific too.
these
Yeah.
people are, these are sex offenders, they're trying to slip in.
just to be clear, that though, as the chair mentioned, this code, RCW, has to deal with just sex offenders. What it actually said is there's other codes that deal with the others.
Oh, okay.
If we blur it, it'll become confusing. So really, the question before the commissioners are, you wanted, based on the last conversation, some greater definition. They've worked with our legal team collaboratively to come up, is this greater definition meet your agreement so that they can move forward?
Okay. I'm good with that myself.
I don't know why I cannot, I want to hear from my seatmates on why does it have to say sex offenders instead of people? I mean,
Because sex offenders is a hot topic that the public ought to know about. And if this is people, there's a good, this is my position, that people might it might gloss over and nobody's gonna pay attention. I want the public to be very aware of what the state is trying to do, and that includes why it's important to have that the state is doing this. It's not some county initiative.
well, I think that is covered in, the citing of like 7109.
But then
But-
they're gonna go look that up? Nobody's gonna look that up.
If it's helpful at all to the discussion, the code already has secure community transition facilities, which are those state-run facilities, and these are the private. And they do call out the term sex offender in that code definition as well. I don't know if that's helpful at all.
And what was the recommendation from the planning commission?
The Planning Commission felt really strongly that
Yeah.
we should be transparent, and that even when our docket item was LRA community housing, it sounded almost like an affordable housing initiative. And so we worked with the board's PIO's office to have it be state mandated housing for sex offenders, just so we were being really clear, because community housing can come across as, oh, wow, that's a, new way to build apartments or whatnot.
Yeah, so it came from the planning commission, and based on the discussion last time, that was a takeaway staff had to look at what options. So it's really your decision at this point, because it's not the recommendation of staff. It's coming from planning commission and from discussions here at this level from commissioners. We've just tried to fulfill the direction, give some options.
Can we go to the next piece?
So this topic was whether, and this falls outside of CPED or the codes we usually work on, business licensing and inspections. And kind of putting those two things together, because a lot of times inspections may come with a business license program or whatnot. But so we had a good meeting with Auditor Hall and some of her staff to understand what the county's current business license program is and whether there's capacity to also require business licenses and maybe, semi-annual inspections or whatnot of privately run residential facilities. We can't just call out LR community housing facilities. It has to be any privately run residential facilities, which also means there's a lot of them. Our county's current business license program is very narrowly scoped. What was it? They only have a few a year.
Maybe 2 or 3.
And they don't have the resources or the expertise if we started talking about having them check for certain licensing or whatnot, to do any kind of inspections or tracking of these privately run residential facilities. So if the board would like to further those conversations, they're probably better held with the auditor's office that operates that program, but we did try to at least get some initial answers on whether this was worth further exploring.
That's just for a business license. What about food handling issues, like, health permits?
So those are written in as requirements because this is considered like a quasi-commercial operation. And so those are codified. So they would be required to have those. It was just another tracking mechanism to make sure that there's kind of this annual check, right?
This was my question because I just thought, well, even if, I knew the answer was gonna be, we don't have staffing and resources to do it, but my thought was if it was in there and we had a problem, it would give us the
Tool to address.
theoretically, we'd have the latitude to go find out what's going on. It would be an extra protection for the community because there's an ability for us embedded in this, if it was legal, appropriate to do it, to be able to go in on a spot basis, not
They're
that,
complaint driven.
and again, not that we'd be targeting this facility, but that if it was a complaint driven and we got, some massive concern about something going on, we would have that latitude.
So if it's complaint driven and already fits under how we approach Title 26 in our code enforcement, then what we've already baked into the development code updates would allow for us to go and, check on any of those complaints.
Even without a business license requirement.
Yeah, the business license was more, I think the conversation was around, is there a proactive way, like not complaint driven? And if it's not complaint driven, you really need to have it tied to some kind of licensing or procedures or whatnot. And so that was just one of the ideas, because Title 26 is very clear.
So is this a semantic definition of the word inspection? By saying inspection, you're implying that it's routine and proactive rather than reactive?
I think it could go either way. We were trying to explore, because we know what the reactive looks like, because that's how we currently operate. Trying to brainstorm what it would look like to have more of the routine annual. And that one is a lot more difficult.
Although we do, on a regular basis, prioritize what we're going to do, even though, because we can't do it all. So that's pretty common, that we would
that's what I was thinking.
prioritize certain things over other things. And I'll just use a simple example is the speed limit. We might set a speed limit, and if the speed limit is 35, we can do something at 36, but we don't. We would say we wouldn't do something until 45. I don't know, something like that. So, we do set priorities all the time on everything we do. What's that?
And now I'm driving 44, now that I know the rule.
Well, that's just there was never anything written that that's the way it ought to be. It was all about, let's have some common sense here, So, I don't know. So you're saying it'd be harder if we put this in, it's just that much tougher for us to.
It's just we don't have a framework for it right now. We didn't.
And the other sounds like it'll suffice, is that?
It'll suffice with complaint driven and there are a number of permit requirements.
There's a way to accomplish the engagement through the complaint, this proactive way.
Even without that, or with this?
Well, yes, even without that, if there's a complaint, then they can step in.
Don't worry, there'll be complaints.
With this, we'd have to work with the auditor's team. I guarantee you staffing and adding FTEs is gonna come up. as part
Well,
of the
my question is about, we're not,
Not the tree. you
we're
want
not
to-
showing us the chart that, I know we had a chart before of like the elements that we're gonna change and whether or not the planning commission recommended and staff and prosecuting attorney and staff, all that. We're not seeing that, but my recollection was that, my question is, okay, I think we were interested in there being a capacity to inspect, check, respond, whatever word you want to use, whatever verb. Not just if there was like a building code violation, but some of the other new, and again, I don't remember the full list of new requirements, but like, we wanted to be able to monitor all of the requirements that we're proposing to put in our code are being adhered to. And that might not, and I don't know, I'm asking kind of, this is a question, I'm thinking out loud. That might not fall into the category of a typical, oh, you built you built a shed with no permit. Like, okay, we know how to deal with that. But these are new things, more subtle things maybe. I can't remember the list, but things that might not be a typical CPED compliance department response topic. Is that making sense what I'm saying?
It is, yeah, and I think we would probably need to sit down with the auditor and Mary to go over that in detail.
It may not be a business license, that may not be the place to put it, I don't know. Maybe you can expand what CPED compliance department does. But I think that was the idea, and I think it was my idea, was could we just make sure that those things that we're saying these facilities have to do are being done?
A lot of it will be, it's the ongoing check that is harder, like, they won't be able to get occupancy for their facility until they have checked. So those checks do happen at the beginning. It's the continued
At the annual,
checking.
Yeah.
It's like, we're saying you need this many parking spots and one for ADA accessibility, but making sure going out there 5 years later and like, do you still have that spot? That's the harder one that is usually complaint driven. And we'll have to make sure no matter what we come up with, and we can explore different options, is that it will be all privately run residential facilities. It won't just be these ones, because we don't want to run that risk.
Can't be discriminating
Can't.
against just one.
Thank you for that word. I was looking for that word. So if, depending on how you feel about the definition, and whether we should move forward with those changes, and whether there are any other changes for the Title 20. So we don't have a permit provision right now in place. So these are really focused on our zoning codes, all the changes on the zoning codes. If you want to look at codes outside of that, let's say Title 26 or something with the auditor's office, I would recommend still moving forward with this piece, this package, while all of that is further explored. Because right now, there is no special use permit required. There's no noticing, there's no hearing. That's all what's in this package. So.
I'd like to get this done myself.
So are we, I don't remember if the board was in agreement because like I say, you showed us, I remember slides where there was like a chart and there were things the planning commission wanted to do that the attorney said we shouldn't do because of legal. So are we in agreement to follow the legal, to do everything that we're allowed to do that the lawyer said we can do?
I recall that there was direction from the board to follow up on these two items, but not to revisit the items that we got legal counsel.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, because I want to follow the legal advice we got, not
If
go
you don't
beyond.
like your attorney's opinion, you just get a different attorney.
Well, but
They all
I was
say-
fine with the attorney's opinion that I heard, so,
Yeah.
but I just want to make sure, because I don't think we actually debated that. We just kind of went through, it was informational. You just kind of said, here's the different issues and
I
here's the
want to do,
questions.
I want to do what the planning commission wants.
Yeah, see, so we're not in agreement.
And
I don't
we're-
want to do what the planning
we're-
commission
we're
wanted.
at odds
Because the planning
on
commission
that.
said to do things that the
But I don't
prosecuting
want
attorney
it
said
delayed
would get us
forever.
sued.
Why don't we do this here, we still have some time on the game clock. How hard would it be to get the information where the discrepancy of the planning commission? Can we take like a 10-minute recess and then come back? Because
We can definitely.
But you're
do
saying
that.
there's a path of least
recollection-
resistance we should follow, and we could still debate these other things?
Well,
Later.
My recollection was on that, while there was, I felt direction given just
research, and that's,
to research just these two items. And kind of how we landed on the other ones were like, yeah, we're not like 100% like thrilled, right? But we're going to follow attorney's advice just because that's a more thorough way to get it, and then we're gonna continue working with the legislator, and then that was my recollection
wanna be
on the
on solid
conversation.
ground.
And we wanna be on solid ground of passing something now and then working for that
Whether we like it or
expanded.
not.
Yeah, that was my recollection of the conversation, but I might be wrong as well, like.
I just was trying to confirm. That's what I thought we were, but I wasn't sure.
But if,
To Ashley's point, there's nothing in county code right now, so to put something in as a development regulation, there's always the opportunity for the board to come back, monitor how this actually functions in code, and then be able to adapt accordingly down the road.
Just don't want to circumvent. If you feel like there's a discussion that needs to be had, we can quickly go and get that information and put it up, and then you can.
I just wanted to clarify because I don't want to put, like, if the decision point is to put something for public hearing, I don't want to put elements before the public
That you
for
guys
discussion that have been legally determined to not be, like, that's not useful.
Here's a decision
So
point.
that would not be something I would vote for.
Are you guys in agreement that you decided to move forward with the attorney's recommendation? They researched the change to the language. If you are, then we can go ahead and move forward, make a decision today, right now. If you still think that you need a debate, then give us 10 minutes. We'll come back with another presentation and bring up that information so you can talk it through.
I guess, I'm not happy with it because I think we need to be harsher on these situations myself, but I'm willing to move forward to get something on the books, kind of, is where I'm at. And then we can adjust it later.
We know Representatives Griffey and Couture are
Right,
working
they're
on a
all
bill
working at
and
the state
maybe
level and
changes we
all
can
that.
make
So
once the legislation.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, well, I'm good if that's where you guys are.
Okay,
yeah, and in my conversation with Representative Couture, he was also, like, King County is going through the same process that we are right now, and they're looking actually at our language to try to do something over there, and so they're like working also with Representative Couture and Representative Griffey to try to expand our.
So if I may, then we would want to get a thumbs up on proceeding with the language, proceeding with the attorney's recommendations,
following the recommendation.
following the attorney's recommendations. And this team can explore a proactive approach, but that's not going to be part of it at this time because it's not researched or developed.
I guess
So
that's
got a
good.
thumbs up? One,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4.
Take it while it's hot.
All right, thank you so much, team, for your hard work, your persistence.
So similarly, you will see an AIS to schedule public hearing on the consent agenda in the next available.
Okay.
Thank you.
You did a good job.
Thank you.